Praise the Lord, everyone. Pastor Ryan Johnson here. Let me ask you something. Do you think God actually speaks to us? Or is that just a figure of speech? We say it all the time. The Lord spoke to me the other day. Do you think God actually uses us? We pray that all the time. Lord, use me. Well, you know, the most powerful, persuasive tool we have in our spiritual toolkit is the testimony. So listen to this powerful testimony. And then you tell me, does God speak to us? Does God use us? And be encouraged.
I was lost or I was found.
My mother and my father divorced, and my mother remarried another man, and he was a truck driver. And I was about 8 years old, and he found work on the Navajo Indian Reservation. They had discovered oil. This was about 1955. They had discovered oil on the reservation, but there was no place to live, no place. So we moved out there because he knew he had plenty of work, and we started looking for a place to live. And we ended up, and very fortunate, and I know this sounds strange, but we lived in a cave. And it was on the reservation, and it was quiet, and it was peaceful, and it was the happiest of my entire childhood was there on this reservation. There was deer constantly. You saw deer, you saw coyotes, you saw lizards, everything. One day my brother and I were chasing lizards, I think, or maybe it was a deer, I don't remember now, and we were sure that we got rich. We found an entire hill of what is called fool's gold, iron pyrite, and we took as much as our little hands and arms could carry and lugged it all the way back home to the cave and told my dad that we were rich and we didn't have to worry anymore. And he says, "Oh, that's fool's gold," and threw it out in the road. And I was so upset because no way, that has to be real gold. So anyway, as being a child, you get to become friends with other children, and it's beautiful there. And, you know, kids are just kids, you know, as simple as that. The entire cave was probably the size of my living room right now. And the back part of the cave literally narrowed down, and my folks had run a wire and put a sheet on it, and that was their bedroom. And the rest of the room we had two small couches. My brother and I slept on each on one of the couches, and there was a crib for my littlest sister. And we hauled in water to drink from a well. The person who owned the property was named Mrs. Bartlett, and why I remember it all these years later, I don't know. But anyway, she allowed us to have all the water we wanted. We burned coal for heating and cooking, and we had a Ben Franklin pot-bellied stove that somebody, I don't know where it was an old one, I have no idea where it came from, but it kept us warm in the winter, as warm as you can be from 40 miles from the Colorado border and the mountains of New Mexico. It was rather cold. And we had an outhouse, and it was different. It was unique. What's even more amazing was that during this period is when they were talking so much about flying saucers and Roswell and such. And one day, I have no idea why, I was afraid to go out and get coal. Now that was my job. I was the oldest. I was 8. And Dad gave me the pail to go get some coal from outside. And I didn't want to go out there. And I said, "No, there's Martians." And my dad says, "Dear, they're real small, and if you catch one of them, we are wealthy." Well, from that point on, I decided I was not afraid of any aliens because I had to catch one so we would be wealthy.
I was lost or I was found. Nothing ever in between. Shedding tears or extremely happy.
But it was, went to school, had to walk It seemed like forever. I mean, this is those stories, you had to walk uphill to school both ways. Yeah. Well, we did have to walk from the cave to the road, and the snow was, no joke, was halfway, it was to our waist. It was 2.5, 3 feet high. And stand there and wait until a school bus came by and would pick us up and took us into Aztec, New Mexico. Now, Aztec's a major town now. At the time, it didn't even have a grocery store. And the school was the basement of the only church in town. And they had a school in there, and that way there was a place to keep us warm and dry while they taught us. But to go buy groceries, you had to drive 23 miles on a dirt road to Farmington, New Mexico to buy groceries. It wasn't an easy life, but it was a sweet life. And it was so pretty and so quiet. I still remember it so vividly. It was so nice. But then we moved to Kansas, and Dad went to work again for hauling, truck driver, hauling stuff, and grain elevators. If any of you are from the farming area, those great big huge towers, grain elevators, he hauled all the metals and the supports and all that to different places to build grain elevators. And I went to school there in Neodesha. I became friends with a girl named Carol Lindsay, and her parents were the pastors of an Pentecostal church. I don't remember the name of the church, the actual religion. I just remember it was Pentecostal. And I had been tending there for maybe 2 years on and off. And one Sunday, I remember very plainly, I just was lonesome, and I didn't want to stay in the house. My home life was, well, like most of us, we don't have the perfect home life as kids. Very few of us have the Norman Rockwell life, and my life was definitely not Norman Rockwell. And so I remember driving, getting permission to take the car and driving to the church on a Sunday night. And the building was old, and there was like 10 steps. This is brick country. If you've ever been in the Midwest, bricks are everywhere. And there was like 10 steps to get up to the main level. And it was an elongated building, and there was like 15 rows of pews on both sides. And there was this large foyer open area, and I had 2 bathrooms, the men and women's bathroom there. And you came in from the side door into this foyer, and then you went to your pew. On this Sunday night, I was sitting there all by myself on the back pew. And there wasn't too many people there. I'm going to say maybe 30 in the whole room, which meant it was quite sparse. And we were listening to the music. And I was on the back pew right before this foyer starts. And I was just listening to the music, and all of a sudden, I felt 2 hands, literally like this, firm hands on my shoulders. I heard instantly in my brain, and I can still hear it today, is this voice say, "Don't turn around." So I didn't, and the hands lifted me up. I stood up, they turned me, walked me to the end of the pew, turned me, walked me across the foyer to the front, to the door of the women's bathroom, and they were gone. I opened the door to the bathroom, and there was a woman having a heart attack on the floor right there in front of me. I ran to her, and then I thought, well, I don't know what to do. So I ran from there, I ran to the pastor's wife, and I ran in and I said, "There's a woman having a heart attack in the bathroom." And she and half the room ran into the bathroom to help her. I walked out of the church then, and I got to the first step, and I started, and I was shaking so hard because I could still feel those hands on me. I could still hear it in my head that God had done this. And I took like 2 steps down and just had to sit. I couldn't go anyplace. I was so weak. I literally was unable to function on my own because God had touched me. Who am I? And he had used me, and I never got over that he wanted this woman saved, but he used me as the tool in his toolbox to save me. I had known all my life, since I can remember plainly at 7, that God wanted me. I knew it. I could feel it. I could hear him, whatever. I don't know. I wasn't raised in a religious home at all. But I knew he wanted me. And that seemed to form the cake to say that this is your foundation. I love people. I love to help people. This is what God's using me for. I don't go over and find a total stranger and try to drag them to God. No. But God tells me when they need me, and I help them any way I can. One day, I was in Paradise still, as a teacher. I've been a teacher since 1981, teaching in the church. But I went to the DMV. This was way before COVID, before you had to have an appointments like that. And you stand in a very long line at the DMV. And it was, the desks are in a semicircle, little cubicles, for these people. And finally I get up to being the next one called. And they tell me which cubicle window to go to. And it's all the way over to my right, the last one. As I go up to the window, there is a woman facing this way. Now, I'm facing into the cubicle. She's facing this way at her computer. And all I can see is purple and blue, and I feel like pinpricks all over me. And I know this can't be me. This is God. I give all the credit for God for everything that happens. He's using me for something. So when she comes out and swings off of her computer and comes to the window, she says, "May I help you?" And I just put my hands through the window and I said, "You need a hug." And I pulled her to me, and she literally broke into tears, sobbing. I mean, openly sobbing and crying. She says, "My dad just died and I still had to come to work." God wanted me there to put a Band-Aid on her wound, to show her that he loved her. He was sympathizing with her. He was comforting her. And that's the reason he put me at that window. It wasn't my idea. I didn't know her. Still don't know her to this day. Wouldn't know her if she knocked on my door. But I wasn't there for her to know me. I was there to help her. Then years later, on a Sunday, I'm sitting here thinking, I love yards and gardens, and I need to go by to Home Depot. See, Home Depot and Lowe's are two of my favorite hangout stores. And I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to buy a pot so I can plant some of these new plants in it. So I go to Home Depot and I'm walking around and I finally find a pot and whatever else I bought, I don't really remember. But I'm going to check out there in the garden section. And I'm standing in line behind a gentleman. And as he gets through and he's walking away, all of a sudden, again, I feel this urge to help this person, this strong feeling that she's in desperate need. And I said, as I got up to her, she's a little itty bitty Hispanic lady. I mean, she's maybe 21 years old, but she's only like 4 foot 11. I said, "Oh, sweetheart, you need a hug." And I walked around the desk, not afraid at all, and I pulled her to me, and she broke into my arms, sobbing and crying. And I rocked her back and forth and rubbed her back and said a prayer over her. And after about a minute or so, I didn't time it, she got a breath, and she says, "I'm fine now." And she apologized. I said, "Sweetie, there's nothing to apologize for. Nothing at all." And we did our business, and I left. Again, I thought I went to Home Depot because I thought I needed a pot. God wanted me to Home Depot because this woman needed to be shown that he's thinking of her. I don't know what the problem is. It doesn't matter. He loves her, and he's helping her. And again, I'm just the tool. The last time this happened, so far it's happened 3 times in my life, I was in the bank. Again, similar thing. And I went up to the window, and again, I saw purple and blue light around this woman, and pain and hurting, and Again, when she came to the window to help me, she says, "May I help you?" I hugged her. And again, she broke down crying and she says, "I'm so sorry. I just got a phone call that my husband's been diagnosed with kidney cancer." Again, she was needing God's hugs, and he used me to give the hugs. I don't plan these. God plans them. I'm just willing to walk the walk.